Confidocene, if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. It says, what do you think about lying on a resume? I feel like it is immoral as an aspiring engineer. Okay, here's the deal. An outright black and white lie is always bad. It's first of all, listen, if you don't want to talk morality, okay, think of it this way. If you're caught in that lie, it's bad for you. Not only do they reject you for this job, there's a chance they may blacklist you in some way, shape, or form. That has been known. Here's a person that, we now see that they have no professional integrity. That's bad. Okay, not only are we rejecting you from this job, but we're putting you on some kind of blacklist that is shared between maybe a couple of different companies or something. You don't know. You don't know. Such things have been known. Okay, so saying that you have a qualification when you don't, things like that are like black and white. It's either a yes or no answer, and it's very clear cut. Lying about that stuff is not good. Now, beyond that, we then get into everybody has their own definition of exactly what constitutes lying. Is exaggerating lying? Is not disclosing something that may not be relevant. Is that lying? You know what I mean? Like, that's where it gets into this fuzzy kind of gray area, right? The problem is that you may have very high moral principles and ethical principles in the sense that you say, like, anything that isn't like brutally honest, upfront, absolute honesty is a lie, And the problem is that if you take that attitude, you often lose out because other people don't share that view. And they may come into it thinking, like, for example, I'm not going to lie outright, but that doesn't mean I disclose everything. If they say, what is your greatest weakness? And you say, well, let's just say hypothetically, you said, like, I have no weaknesses, right? I don't really feel that I have like a major Achilles heel. I try to be a well-rounded person. And maybe that's not entirely honest. If your mother asked you, what do you think is your greatest weakness? You would say, well, I'm a little bit too antisocial. I really need to be less blunt and more charismatic with people, So that's what you honestly think. But when they ask you the same question in an interview, you know that listing your flaws will probably be a bad thing for you to do. So you decide not to do it, right? Now, is that lying? I'll leave that up to you, okay? Some people say yes, some people say no. What I am saying is that if you take the high road here and you say, like, no, I believe in that concept so completely that I've decided that when I go to an interview, I'm going to lead with all my flaws in the spirit of honesty and full disclosure. I'm going to lead by saying, listen, full disclosure, I'm not the easiest person to get along with. And full disclosure, yes, I have this degree, but quite frankly, I scraped by. You may not see my grades listed on my resume, but I scraped through with a C-. And full disclosure, I think it's only honest of me to disclose that, right? If you did have that definition of lying, you're going to find that you probably won't get very far because your competitors, certainly some of them, will not share that viewpoint, okay? And what they will do is they will not lead with their failures. They will do everything they can not to mention their failures, and they've passed the interview, whereas you don't. You know what I mean? So that's the problem. You can promote yourself. You can make sure that you talk about your strengths by default. You minimize your weaknesses. You try not to disclose them if you don't have to. That tends to be a very common thing. So I would say that's a good thing to do. I wouldn't judge you too harshly for that. But a black and white lie where they say, are you a fully licensed accountant? And you say yes, when in fact you're not, that's crossing the line. So that's what I would say. So that's what I would say on a resume. That's what I would say in an interview. In any way, shape, or form, that's sort of what guides you, in my opinion. That's my take. Hopefully that makes sense, Confidocene.